Alright, we're about to walk up to Toys R Us Times Square and see if there's any sort of a line for tonight for Force Friday. As of right now, it doesn't look like there is, but I'll let you know.
Small line, not that big, but it's only 6 o'clock.
Alright, so here's our initial walkthrough before they start closing everything down. It's like 7 o'clock right now, and we're gonna go check. So let's go. We are upstairs, and it looks like everything is completely blocked off.
And Star Wars was really the first movie that went out and talked to the fans directly back in 1976. Today it just seems like, oh, you know, at San Diego Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con, all the movie companies go and they bring their celebrities and stars. It wasn't that way. But in 1976, a guy named Charlie Lippincott, who's head of licensing and PR and marketing and everything else, said, we need to bring this to the fans. And so they went to 4 conventions in the summer of 1976. And there are photos from 2 of those conventions, San Diego Comic-Con, which was 6 years old, and Worldcon, which was in Kansas City that year. And they brought props and they showed slides. Mark Hamill showed up at Kansas City. But there was a banner that was at both conventions. And this was a banner that had an old style Star Wars logo and a piece of art on it that was done by Ralph McQuarrie, the famous concept artist who really designed the look of Star Wars, and we're going back to a lot of that today. And this was Starkiller. It was one of the composite characters that George came up with at the very beginning, one of the first drafts of the script. And this became Luke Skywalker, a little bit of Obi-Wan, a little bit of Han Solo. And Ralph McQuarrie was over visiting Rancho Obi-Wan about 8 years ago before he passed away, and said, yeah, I remember painting that banner. And I said, wait a second, you hand-painted a banner for a convention? He said, oh yeah, I did anything they asked me to do. I was happy. And besides, I still like that logo better than the one they came up with. So, and having that recollection, having a piece of Ralph McQuarrie there, and he was such a fantastic guy. I first met him in '91 when I was doing my first Star Wars book. And to have something from him and tying Star Wars back to the fans, and Lucasfilm has always been very conscious of its fan base from the very beginning through the current time.
Now let's take some questions from the audience. Yes.
Did you buy like some of the toys from 1977 before? Did you buy them?
The question was when I started buying the toys, and yeah, I have this collector gene. I collected baseball cards and comic books, but I loved science fiction growing up, and I started collecting old Japanese space toys. And then 6 months later, Star Wars came out. So as part, and I loved it. I was blown away by it, like we all were. And as part of the space toy collection, I bought Star Wars items off the shelf, many of them from Toys R Us. And just kept buying. And then when Empire Strikes Back came out, that cemented the deal for me. And my collection just veered totally towards Star Wars and all of the Star Wars movies. And so, yeah, I opened all my original figures and eventually replaced them on the
I'm surprised there's no gasp.
Yeah. I play with my stuff too. I try to keep some things in the box. Well, I'll tell you, there are some toys here tonight which I'm going to tear open and play with because they're so cool.
Any other questions before we jump in? Yes. There we go.
Did you keep your original drawings of Chewbacca and
I had my dad had those drawings for many years, and he found them and he gave them to me recently. So yeah, I rediscovered them, and about 5 years ago, I was doing an interview. It was the 25th anniversary of the Droids cartoon, which was done in 1985, 30th anniversary. And Pete Vilmer at Lucasfilm was doing an interview with me, and he said, like, because I've actually done licensed illustrations used about that show for a couple of different magazine articles. And it's weird, but it's one of those cartoons that a few people are really crazy about, and most people, have never seen it or ever heard about it. But I just happen to be one of the guys that, just liked the show and did the illustrations. And so Pete wanted us, like, hey, do you have any illustrations you did when you were a kid? I was like, yeah, I have somewhere. And so I went and I dig them up, and I dug up some of the drawings that I did of droids when I was 12, but went back and found basically my whole history of doing, these drawings and watching my art talent get better, like, for each movie and each year as it was going on. So I said, like, how much you want? He said, like, oh, let's send me like five or six pieces. So I sent him, like, some of the ones that I did when I was 3. I sent him some of the ones that I did when I was 10, and some of the ones that I did now. And
could he tell the difference?
Hopefully, gladly, yes. But yeah, so yeah, I still have it.
All right.
But if you want them, I'll sell them to you.
Steve, this question's coming to you from Twitter, from @KMW888. My original Star Wars figures are leaching an oily, sticky residue. How can I save them / clean them?
Well, if either they're out of the card or they're still in the bubble, one way, and this is a common thing with early plastics and now 38-year-old plastic, and you get this sort of like white fur on them and some other things. One of the things you can do is leave them outside in the sun, watching them every hour or so, or put them under an electric light bulb, again, monitoring them very closely. And something in those ultraviolet rays tends to kill whatever that white fungus and oily substance is on them, and makes them look pretty good. That's about the only thing you can do if they're still in the case. If they're not carded, then I would try to wipe them off first, but try the sunlight or the light bulb thing.
Sounds like you've done that before.
I have indeed.
All right, now Jeff, question for you. Have you ever, this is coming from Trooper Man with, instead of the O's, they're zeros, because obviously it was taken. Have you ever used a 501 Stormtrooper for art reference? Would love to see me pop up somewhere.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, one of the things, as a licensed artist, if you participate in these Star Wars Celebration conventions, you have to do a piece of artwork that you can sell at the convention. And not for this last convention, but the one before, Star Wars Celebration 6, I did a huge panorama that was, the whole concept was that, because it was for the 35th anniversary of Star Wars, was the idea of, in the Star Wars universe, what if they had a movie premiere about the events made as a movie called Star Wars? It's a little meta, I know. But I filled the street. I made a version of Man's Chinese Theater, but set it on Tatooine, so it was called Nam's Huttese Theater. So so got a little geeky with that. Had other movie posters and things hanging on the building, but all of the characters who were in the, like, filling the streets were all either cosplayers I know, characters from things that were inspired by Star Wars, or characters that actually inspired Star Wars. So it was like this super, like, meta, like, and there were over 300, I want to say there's about 300 characters and ships in this picture. And
wait a second, so are you saying I'm a character?
You are a character.
Because I was in this.
He was.
It's an amazing piece of art.
Have you seen yourself?
Yeah.
What's great, which celebration did you dress as the Ewok? Was that 5?
That was 4.
That was 4.
Yes.
And it was one of my favorite, one of the things is that Steve loves to collect Ewok things too. And one of the first pieces that I gave him for his collection is I did some drawings for the Star Wars miniatures game. And I did some Ewok designs for that. And so I gave him the front and back one time. And we were talking about this. And so when I found this old photo of him dressed as an Ewok, I said, like, okay, this is the costume that he's going to have to wear as a cosplayer in this picture. So yeah, it's Steve dressed as an Ewok.
So
or all time?
We kind of know this answer from Steve already, but I'll pose it to you, Jeff. What is the one piece of the collection that you would never let go?
Well, I kind of brought it with me at the strip. If you came to the art show, the art setup, when you got the early bird certificate, there were two things that you would get. You got the first original 4 characters, but also you could send away and get a standee base that had a background on it, and you could put the first 12 figures up on it. And technically, it was the very first playset that Kenner made for Star Wars. And so I've had that for almost my entire life. I have it sitting with the figures up on my desk in my office all the time. So I carefully took the figures off and packaged it up, and I brought it out with me. And so when I did the art show, the Art Academy today, I wanted to have them with me as my totems. So I set them up on my table, and that is probably the thing that I could never possibly do.
At the workshop today, did you see any potential from anyone that came by?
I saw a lot of potential, and that was one of the things that made me very excited, because when you were asking me about the first drawings that I did, I was looking at the artwork that these kids were doing, and some of the ones who were about the same age as us, they were so much better than with me. I was so jealous.
Jeff is a good teacher, because we were looking over a lot of the kids, and he did the Yoda to start with, just shapes and circles and
circles and triangles.
And I was watching, and some of them were really, really amazing.
There was
These
some
were
incredible
kids 4
talent.
and 5 and 6 years old.
Yeah.
Really cool.
All right, now, Jeff, you kind of answered this question earlier about your dad taking you to the movies, so
Right.
I pose it to you, Steve. This is coming from Dave.
Alright, we are like just 5 people deep in this line right now, maybe 10. Maybe.
So here we are, Force Friday, and we're about to spend some money and have a lot of fun.
They're playing the music now.
After that, the line pretty much just exploded. It was one of the first, probably like 10 people to go through, as I mentioned earlier in the video. It was really kind of hectic because some of the stuff that was on the order sheets that Hasbro released, they never did like a re-release of material saying things weren't going to come out. I was able to pick up all 4 of the Star Wars Black Series 6-inch figures, and I was able to actually get one signed by Steve Sansweet, which you'll see here in a moment. I actually got to take a photo with him and chat with him for a few minutes beforehand. He was just walking around, and he was really cool and answered a lot of questions about his collection and things like that. And it was really nice to see a lot of his stuff, which you, as the pictures are scrolling through that you're seeing right now. All in all, to recap, Force Friday started out at around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It was a great experience. Met up with Book Nice around the 6:30ish. Kind of, we went and had some dinner, and then went through all, outside waiting in line, and it was great. It was a little different than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be more chaotic and more chaos. But the staff at Toys R Us really did a good job, and it was a good event all in all. If you guys like this, just leave me some comments, good or bad. I know some of the audio through this isn't going to be great because I use 2 kinds of cameras, and yeah, the last some photo setups I did at the end of the night. But thanks again, guys. I'll talk to you later.